I would again like to welcome all of you, all the panelists and the audience to this chat on building city narrative. I would like to begin with shedding some light on the recent works that have been happening under the guidance of all our panelists. And following that, we would start with our question and answers and discussions. So I would like to start with Mr. Astik Pandey. He is the, as Samriddhi mentioned, he is the municipal commissioner of the Municipal Corporation of Aurangabad. He has been instrumental in bringing to table the memorial park inspired and built in the memory of Bala Sahib Thackeray in the Aurangabad city. It's a open air park where which consists of a museum, a memorial, and a food court, and multiple open air experiences within the precinct. It also has an 80-meter tall statue of Bala Sahib Thackeray with open experiences, promenades, and food courts, all merged with the nature. I would like to show a quick video of the recent heritage works that have been ongoing and completed under the guidance of Mr. Pandey. So the city has 9 gates, and all those 9 gates have been conserved as a part of redevelopment of the city. Moving on, I would like to introduce our next panelist, Mr. Rathi, who is the Municipal Commissioner of Banaras, or as we call it, Varanasi. Here is a compilation of all the multifaceted development works that are ongoing in the city under the guidance of Mr. Rathi.
Varanasi is one of the 100 cities selected by the Smart Cities Mission, Government of India. Varanasi is also known as Banaras and Kashi. According to Mark Twain, Banaras is older than history, older than tradition, even older than legend, and looks twice as old as all of them put together. Varanasi Smart City envisions meeting the aspirations and needs of the citizens while aiming at developing the entire urban ecosystem represented by the 4 pillars of comprehensive development: institutional, physical, social, and economic infrastructure. While selecting the area of development, Varanasi Smart City had considered the iconic old city area and opted for retrofitting as the model for improving the city. Varanasi Smart City has adopted the following pillars for its development agenda. Suramya Kashi, meaning victorious. Nirmal Kashi, which means pure. Surakshit Kashi, which is about safety and security. Samunnat Kashi, indicating the progressive path. Ekikrit Kashi, emphasizing the need for integration. Suniyojit Kashi, the need for organized efforts. The projects taken up by Varanasi Smart City are based on these pillars of development. Varanasi Smart City is making every possible endeavor in meeting the needs and expectations of both its citizens and the tourists. It is transforming the ancient heritage city into a better place to live. It is transforming the ancient heritage city into a better place to live and safer place to visit. This is being done without changing the city's characteristics, making it smarter and sustainable.
Moving further, this is one of the projects that is happening in Banaras under the guidance of Mr. Rati, where the overall ghats, the 83 ghats of Banaras, the origin point of the city, are being redeveloped, and a very strong stitched narrative of the stories of Banaras are being told to the audience who will be visiting these ghats. These are some renderings of the different kinds of signages which are being populated across the ghats of Banaras. A few explorations being done on site, and how this people have been started visiting and familiarizing with these signages. There are storytelling signages which are also talking about and celebrating the past of the city, and sculptures and other signages brought together to relive the past. And so people, once they are visiting the city, they are not only visiting the ghats as a holy ritual, but they are also enjoying these hidden stories that everybody may not know about the city. As a part of this exercise, the Banaras and Varanasi as a city has also been branded. The city's most identifying elements of the ghats, the temples, and the activity of a person, a visitor, finding himself in the city have been explored and combined to derive a logo for the city of Banaras. I would like to show you a video that explains the journey and the story behind the city of Banaras. Moving further to our third panelist, Jeroen van Erp. He is the innovation strategist at Breek and a very, very dear friend. Uh, he has been instrumental in bringing out the city narrative for Agra and designing the identity for the city. I would like to show you a story of how the city branding has been derived and what does it all represent. Moving further, these are a few images from the inauguration of the logo and launch of the city branding campaign and its implementation in various urban gestures across the city through storytelling signages, wayfinding signages, bus stations, etc. The next project I would like to share with you all is the branding for I Am Amsterdam. I'm sure a lot of you are already familiar with it. Jeroen has been instrumental in bringing out this identity and spreading it across and designing the whole strategy of being able to implement it and then keeping it live through all these years. These are a few derivatives of the branding that one sees across the city, across the publications, etc. The next project that I would like to show you is the urban design as a part of the urban gestures, the branding that has been done for the metro city and the metro of Amsterdam, and how this whole language, visual language, was developed and carried out, and the whole station was given a very, very interesting character. I would like to now introduce our fourth panelist, Mr. Saurabh Gupta. His works in the urban environment have been very enriching. The first project is of the Heritage Walk at Hossainabad, which is the old city of Lucknow, where the old Rumi Darwaza was not hardly visible. The whole plaza has been now opened up. As you see, now the visitors can actually see the entire plaza, and that's how the city has been redeveloped and redefined. The lighting has been improvised, and it has become a place for night tourism as well. Here is a video showcasing this project and what all it entails with it. going further, Mr. Saurabh Gupta has been also working on the metro line in Mumbai and building a new language of these metro stations that punctuate the city all across. These are the executed images of the metro station and how a very contemporary language has been brought into the cityscape of Mumbai, and also the heritage fabric of Bhubaneswar, the Lingraj temple, and how this precinct has been now redeveloped into an open space where pilgrims, visitors are coming together to enjoy this experience even better, restoring the history of Ekamravan at Bhubaneswar. So with this, I would like to end my presentation and now move further with the discussion. Uh, I would like to first address my question to Mr. Astik Pandey. Very good morning, sir. Welcome to the discussion again. Uh, Sir, as we understand that in India, every city has a very, very strong narrative. And we saw how the heritage is being preserved at Aurangabad. And at the same time, new narratives are being built in the city, like the memorial. As the person in charge of transforming the city of Aurangabad into a smart city, how do you strike a balance between preserving this old heritage and at the same time being able to build these new hubs? And what do you think? What is the relevance of bringing and building these new hubs in the city?
Okay, first, good morning, and thank you, Samriddhi and Prashasti, for having me here. In fact, it was a very interesting topic that how we can create a new narratives in the city. Since 11 years, I am in the service, and I was serving different parts of the Maharashtra. And as a civil servant, my role is towards social change and developmental aspects. My experience says that if we look any city or any state or country, most of the time we find that most of the narratives are already in the available or going on in the city. Sometimes a few narratives are under the carpets, few narratives have a mild voices, and few narratives are they are very vocal and dominant role. So, as an agent of social change and developmental change, I find my role, particularly as a municipal commissioner Aurangabad and Smart City Aurangabad, I find my role to give voices to those narratives which are beneficial, which are good for the city. Like we see when we go to any city, we see that there are few commonly known narratives are already there in the city. Like saving environment, we find many activists who are fighting with the to save the environment. Wildlife and enriched society, that's a different take one narrative. Same time, developmental aspect, or we can say rather sustainable developmental narratives already prevail in the city. And saving rivers, awareness towards life of rivers is one more important narrative. Same time, other social and religious cultural narratives are already in the city. So it's our job, it's our duty, it's our wise conscious that we should many times, in fact, many times, it is not even necessary to create a new narrative. Rather, it is wise to build the prevailing narratives. If one is observant, uh, we can find exemplary models and those narratives in as a great inspiration. Same few examples I would like to share, and I would like to clear my say and thesis by few examples. Like Government of India, Government of Maharashtra, they are running a new mission, that is a smart city mission. Now, before coming in existence of a smart city mission, there wasn't such many talks and discourse in the public about few topics like streets for citizen. This is a topic, this is a narrative. It was already there in the society, and few members of the society who were speaking about this topic. But when Government of India Smart City Mission, they focused on, they took this narrative and they emphasized on this narrative. Then almost all smart cities, they are now they focusing on this narrative and developmenting those places in the city which are very comfortable for the citizens. Same time, transport for all. We know that public transport situation in most of the cities are not up to mark or up to expectation, but now Government of India is working on that aspect. And same we can see in Aurangabad Smart City took this mission, and we expanded the reach of this narrative. So transport, under the transport for all, now Aurangabad Smart City is running Maji smart bus, and that is a very good example for the public transport. Same time, cycle for change. We talk, we see, and we received, normally we get many messages on WhatsApp and social media and etc. That's how good cycle is. But how we can give voice to that narrative, that cycle becomes the integral part of our health and our working place. Same time nurturing the neighborhood. And now it's one more narrative which are emphasized by Government of India: eat smart. Now we know that in 21st century, and having seen the last COVID year and this year, we also focusing, and we now most of the cities, and they know the importance of immunity and these things. Now of India is focusing on the eat smart eat smart narrative. So Aurangabad Smart City, Aurangabad Municipal Corporation, we have participated, and we are now engaging with this topic, and we are going to the citizen to bring with this topic. Now, interesting point is when we talk about saving environment. In fact, I have listed 10 narratives which are prevailing in the city, and among the 10 narratives, save environment is a very important narrative, and which got very good voice also. And now, in fact, in large government systems, governments, and other machinery, they are focusing. And although same time, civil society, from civic society, they are coming forward. Now, saving environment with the development, with the creating job opportunities, and same time beautifying our cities, and giving importance to the heritage of the particular Aurangabad city. We can, I would like to explain whole thing in with example. Now, as you mentioned in the intro, that Aurangabad Mahanagar Palika and Aurangabad Smart City is developing a park and a garden, Swargiya Bala Sahab Thackeray Smriti Udyan. It is very interesting to know that it was a big garden, and municipal corporation, it was under the municipal corporation, and there were many trees and wildlife. And few members of society, they were engaging the corporation to develop this place, to increase the wildlife, to increase the forest cover in the garden. And sometimes they got promoted, sometimes they got wise, sometimes it was not up to mark. So even a public interest litigation, they filed public interest litigation in High Court. Now, when we started thinking to develop this garden as a late Sri Bala Sahib Thackeray Smriti Memorial Garden, it was very interesting and it was
I think there is a technical glitch.
folder to develop this garden to be the integral part of this a very important place in the city. So, as a municipal commissioner, we engaged with them. We had very many meetings, negotiations, talks, and ultimately, when we design factory, they came with the map and architect and forest planning of the garden. Then we sat with them, with the member of civic society, and we explained, elaborate whole aspect that promenade, open air park, museum, 80-meter tall statue. Same time, we convinced them that we are building this 80-meter statue for to promote the tourism in the city. Same time, creating the employment opportunities for the citizen. But while we are constructing or this statue or this garden, we will not disturb the environment and wildlife of the garden. In fact, we promised them, and with our concrete plan, we convinced them that you are there were 5,000 trees, approximately 5,000 trees in the garden, and those were not most of trees were not the indigenous trees. So we convinced them, we made plan, we got approval from the various departments of the government. We submitted that plan to the High Court, and after doing this, we convinced the those member of civil society that now we are going to plant more than 5,000 trees in this garden, and you see the forest cover. It is not by the indigenous tree. So we are going to plant the indigenous tree, and you will see the more after completion of this project, you will see the more forest cover, more rich wildlife, more aesthetical aspect in the garden. And ultimately, after 3 to 4 months of negotiations, now we are happy that we have reached at a conclusion, at a spot, at a juncture, where these members of from civil society, they have trust on municipal corporation, they have trust on our whole plan, our whole wish to develop that garden, and now we are engaging. In fact, if we do the tree plantation, we invite them, and they are happily participating in this aspect. So this is a very live and we if we become the voice of that narrative, which were earlier they were taking care, and after becoming the voice of that narrative, if city administration and government, if we can build up and expand on that narrative, it will be very good for the whole society and whole city. So I would like to say that, and emphasizing or giving emphasis on the existing narrative. Sometimes we should create a bold and unconventional narratives also, because and give a bias to those narratives which are under the carpet, like Aurangabad Municipal Corporation and Aurangabad Smart City. We have taken steps towards providing employment and equal opportunity to transgenders. Now, it was an issue which was under the carpet, and there was a need to take a bold step. So Aurangabad Municipal Corporation and Aurangabad Smart City, we engaged with that community, and now we are slowly we are moving towards giving them employment and equal opportunity and equal respect in the society. So, overall, my say is regarding creating a new narratives. Sometimes we have to create a new and bold and unconventional
Thank you, Mr. Pandey, for these insightful words.
give
I think
strength.
there is some technical lag that is being
Well,
faced.
am I audible? Am I audible?
No, sir. There is the screen is frozen, and
Uh, okay,
but I
let me
think
check that.
it was a great insight that we got from you into building these new narratives and how we need to be strong. We need to build these very very strong narratives at times. Taking from here, I would like to invite Yurun. Uh, and to Yurun, I have a very 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 specific and contextual question. That city branding as a concept is rather new to India. And we just saw your works of branding from Agra to Amsterdam and with many other urban spaces that you've been involved in. How do you feel that city branding is, different from branding for a organization or a company? And what is it all about? And why do you think is it important?
Thank you, Prashasti. Thank you, Mr. Pandy, for your vision and your explanation. It is Mr. Pandy talked about narratives, and these narratives can only be based on proof, on what is there or what is going to be there. So branding is always about the promise and what you offer and the story you tell, and it's bringing them together. And Mr. Pandy talked about narratives, and I think in every city there are a lot of narratives. It's a kind of a tiramisu of narratives, and maybe it's more interesting to reframe narratives into a score for an orchestra. So city branding is like uh, um, playing a piece with an orchestra, which is the city, and it should sound good. It should not sound like something which has no connections and everybody's doing whatever he or she wants. So city branding is all about directing, about orchestrating everything what's going on. And what you see is that you saw this in many of the examples, also the examples of Saurabh Gupta's work, is that it's always combining the past with the future, with an intended future. And I think that's very interesting. So what we always do is we dive into a city's the narratives, and we determine which part of the DNA is interesting to take to the future. Because you don't want to take everything to the future. You only want to take the things to the future which are relevant in the future context. And what we also always do is look at the future, see, okay, we see a future of which this is interesting, this is important. And Mr. Pandy mentioned a few of these aspects. And we combine the old DNA, the valuable DNA, with intended future DNA, and that's becoming the city branding. And it's also always about storytelling on one hand, but also the proof on the other hand, what's going on. That's why I really like working together with architects from this perspective, because then it's about real things and the story. And I think this is a very rich combination and creates a magical piece which is attractive for the inhabitants, but also for people who want to visit the city. Is that an answer to your question, Prashasti?
Yes, I think we can talk hours on it, But yes, it puts it in a nutshell, and I think the audience also must have understood what is the essence of city branding and its impact. With this, I would now like to move to Mr. Gaurang Bhatti. Very, very good morning, sir. Uh, we saw a wide array of these development works that are ongoing in the city of Varanasi, and you having the narrative and the mandate to bring the city has a very, very strong ritual belief system. It's a dense fabric of people. It is so much of heritage all into one place. So the question and the challenge that comes to my mind with your perspective is that with so many developments happening simultaneously, how have you put in the strategy to actually channelize all these works together? And what are the challenges that you face as the head of in charge to bring these ideas, these concepts into reality, dealing with so many stakeholders at the same time, to really bring the whole city together? Sir, your voice is not audible. No, sir. It is still not audible. Hello. Is my voice audible? Okay.
Yes, Prashasti. Your voice is audible.
Right, sir. Okay. It seems there is a technical glitch. We will come back to Sir in a bit. And moving on to Mr. Saurabh Gupta. And the question and inquiry that I have with you, Mr. Gupta, is that you've been working in developing and introducing these urban gestures in different scales and kinds of cities, from Lucknow to Mumbai to Bhubaneswar. And each of these cities are developing at their own pace in a very, very unique style and manner. And with the situation of India being such a developing nation, that these changes and needs are also changing and evolving with time. So how do you think, what is the architect's role in defining this vision for the city, and how do you orchestrate, as Jeroen just put it, to bring all these elements together and bring out a solution that lasts longer?
Okay. Hi, everybody. Hi. First and foremost, I would wish DFI a happy birthday. I think that's great to have this initiative. Hard topic, I must say, a hard job of curating a good panel, and of course, the hardest part, the intent of getting this right. So, interesting question, Prashasti. So, as an architect, I would first and foremost completely align with Mr. Pandey and Jeroen on the fact that you need to get the stories from inside. You need to really look at the stories from inside and then look at a collaboration, then look at these middle paths. But I think as urban designers, as architects, what we try and do is that we come in as outsiders with a clean slate, but an ability to abstract, distill, and understand what can shout and what can't shout, and add a value there. But we must and only talk to stakeholders who are inside. We need those insiders to consistently support that argument, to be able to do those findings, I normally say, to walk in the dark with us, to be able to find the essence. And I think that's the most important part of the journey, because unlike branding that people understand, which can last a certain timeline, this is branding cities. This is almost identifying and branding cultures. And so it's a responsibility beyond most responsibilities, I would say. You can't afford to get wrong out there. You can't afford to shout too loud. So it needs to be ingrained in the culture, and it needs to be very true and honest. So it's something that needs to be done very, very carefully. It takes time, but insanely valid, which probably all of us on the panel today understand, because we live this always. And once you start understanding and believing in it, then I think that's the real narrative, that's the real hook you need, apart from the functionality of the whole reality that architects need to do. And everything tries to come together. And then suddenly, not just the physical manifestation that we do as architects, but also the way things function, also the way people behave, not just the physical environment. Everybody starts behaving alike, in sync, because that's really what defines the essence of that narrative. So I think it gets easier once the team comes together and hooks onto one idea, and then everything and everybody tries to build things around that one idea. Thanks.
Yeah, I think what you said about that, how it is different from just as a superficial element, but it has to be really soaked into the city, and everybody should feel associated with it. I think that's really an important aspect and insight. I would like to now go to Mr. Rati. Mr. Rati, hello.
Yeah, is it audible now?
Yes, sir. Yes. Would you like me to repeat the
No, since you were audible, I can straight away go to my reply. So, very succinctly putting in, is it audible, Prashasti?
Yes, it is audible.
Yeah. So, very good morning to everyone. And without much ado, let me come straight to the point. See, as with any other city, and more so for Banaras or Varanasi, city already has some introduction of its own. And as you said, that it packs in a very rich history, culture, heritage, several aspects of nature, ecology, which we are not that much aware of, and also it's present, and it's there are certain elements in its present, like developing it as a smart city, trying to make it a city that is technology driven. So as everyone remarked upon before me, there are several sub-contexts and narratives that flow along with the city. And what a symbol and a subscript does is that it brings together these myriad contexts and sub-contexts and try to weave it together and develop a token of transaction that speaks about the city even when no actual conversation or interaction is happening. So that's how a city comes to life, as per me. If we are able to develop such a symbol that encapsulates all these subcontexts, its past, its present, and what it aspires for in future, brings it together, gives it and we give a symbol such that it has its own traction amongst the local populace, and it stands to be a symbol or token of transaction before for that city to communicate with the tourists coming in and the citizens of the city alike. So both the factors are important. So in that particular regard, I think any narrative built, whether it has been for Agra or much before for cities like Amsterdam. So a very important aspect that the answer is that they make the city come live all of a sudden, and the city metamorphosize into a symbol and a subscript, and tries to speak to the world that this is me, this is the gateway to me, and come and explore. So I think that transaction, that token of transaction, and its communication medium makes this symbol aspect very important. As we know, a symbol is very important, whether it be religion, whether it be representation of gender, all spheres of life. It's very important. So I think this is my 2 bits about how important or relevant it is.
Thank you so much, sir. So I think it's really a great way of saying that it becomes like a gateway to the city itself, and how these are all interaction points for the visitors and for the citizens of the city. So I'm sure a lot of our audience have a lot of queries. I would invite them to please put in their queries into the chat box, and we will take them towards the end of the discussion. I would now like to open the dais for all the panelists to address a few discussion points. I think one commonality and one major query that we face as a nation is that India being a developing state, we are still struggling in parts with the basic necessities. There are people who are working towards earning these daily wages. There are people who are struggling for medication. With Corona around, I think the struggle has gone to the next level. How do you think building a city narrative or doing branding for these cities, how do you strike a balance in saying that no, this is as important as providing roti kapra makan to the Indians that are out there? What is your perspectives on this issue?
So, Prashasti, are you asking me, or is it like a general question?
Who are you asking?
Yes, I would like to open the discussion to this thought, and I would like everybody to participate and share their thoughts on this. So we could start with Mr. Rathi. I think, sir, would you like to shed some light on this?
See, Prashasti, whatever, since at any point in time, we are envisaging this symbol and subscript as something that is relevant for all times practically, as in it's sustainable. So any narrative that tries to do that, or any subscript that tries to do that, would try to marry the limitations of present. And as Jeroen said, that we are not showing everything, as in there's something left for the imagination and the person to come and discover and feel about the city. So we are trying, at any point in time, we are trying to marry the present, the future, and the past. So its relevance would always remain the same, and in fact, importantly, it would increase because it would gain traction after a certain point in time. And come what may, whatever the state of city is, and even if, and in fact, more so in terms of adversity. So, even when the city is in dire straits, so there is a war, there is a bombing, but that symbol of the city still remains intact, and around which the people can rally. So I think the relevance of that symbol is all the more in times of adversity, and of course in normal times, and as it grows and as it tries to match up to the levels of development with the rest of the world, it's still trying to speak the same currency, same token. So I think relevance is absolutely there, and whatever stage of development a particular city is in, there are few characteristics in DNA, or its warp and weft remains the same. So in terms of taking metaphor of fabric, so if you develop a fabric, if it doesn't have embroidery, it doesn't have jari work, but it has its warp and weft that is already defined, that defines the city. So when we talk about the basic DNA, it remains intact, and whatever embellishment comes with time, I think a symbol has that inherent flexibility of redefining itself, keeping in the basic of it still there. So as far as relevancy part is concerned, to answer your question, I think it gains traction and becomes more important with time to come when once it's developed.
Right.
Prashasti,
Yes.
I see a lot of questions about the question you had about giving priorities to some movements, and also the difference between Europe and India. There is a tendency, and it's very logical, to focus on within a city on all the differences. But it's much more interesting to focus on the commonalities. I mean, everybody loves a very nice park, you know, and because a park is for everybody. So taking care of basics and commonalities in a very attentive way is always working. And I can remember, maybe you know that in the 90s we had this war in Europe, in former Yugoslavia, which was really severe, which was very close by, and we didn't experience this since World War II. And there was a student who wanted to design a bench, a beautiful bench in a totally destroyed area. And this raised a lot of debate because people said, yeah, is this the priority, this beautiful bench or whatever? But when the bench was there, everybody liked this, you know, because it was a token, it was a symbol of doing things differently and paying attention to the interaction between the city and people. So I think focusing on the commonalities is really good, and which is always rooted, of course, in the DNA and in the narratives of the city. And there is no from that point of view. There's no difference between Europe, India, Asia, Australia, America, whatever.
So I would add to what Jeroen just said, that, and I heard some keywords out here already. I think it's not a choice of either or. It's got to be a balance. So it's not about saying, okay, you can only do this, and it's about the spirit. I heard the word alive. You know, it's about keeping the culture alive, people alive. So whether it's in adversity or whether it's everyday life, where it's not about putting that money on a signage or on a toilet. I don't think that's the right way approach. I think you need to be able to pan out a plan, a full system that does everything. But it's normally that, you know, these hard costs, these hard numbers kind of get prioritized, while these soft components, which are equally or more important, take a backstage. So I think I'm so glad that these things are coming up. Even such questions being brought up, I think, are hard enough and good enough. And I really feel this needs to be understood, that everything needs to move together. It's not about making these choices.
And there are a few more aspects. In fact, Jorian and Saurabh, they have unfolded the topic, and it's very important. But we can see a few more aspects. Ultimately, if we talk about Roti Kapda Makan and versus this narrative, I don't think that it should sustain now, because it's a very old narrative, and we have we have gone all the aspects of this narrative. And this narrative, in fact, I think prevailing since 1947. After 1947, we are engaging in this kind of narrative. In fact, for example, I am coming again on the topic that if our city is looking beautiful, neat and clean, and aesthetically it's attracting the tourist, or then ultimately it will generate the income, and it will become the medium of fulfilling the Roti Kapda Makan, these things. Same time, in particular urban setup, health and mental health is a very important topic. If your city, your environment is as per the norms, as per the pleasant, and as per the norms of or suitable for the mental health, ultimately we are going to spend less on our mental health and other health related topics. So I don't think that we should go in that aspect. And in fact, India, we have had a long journey, and now we are focusing. And now, in fact, citizens, they are understanding the importance of these things. I have seen the Lucknow, I have seen Varanasi, I have been in Varanasi also. And again, if we have any data, and if we do a survey, that how many people would like to go to Lucknow now and would like to visit these places, obviously we will see the increase in numbers. So ultimately, if we are developing our cities more aesthetically, giving them a better look, it will ultimately will be income generating for the citizens. Thank you.
Yes, I think it was a very refreshing insight and a constant turbulence well answered and addressed. Due to shortage of time, I think I will have to cut through rest of the discussion points and directly move to the queries of the audience. There are some very interesting questions coming up. So I'd like to first take up a question from Kabina Zarura. Her question is to Mr. Rati. And she says, does the responsibility for choosing an identity for a city like Varanasi burden you? Because you know it's going to stay for years and it's a huge identity transaction, as you said. How
Yeah,
did you arrive to its selection?
see, for a city like Varanasi, which has such an entrenched history and one of the oldest living cities of the world, you try to be very humble as to what your aspiration is. And you go by the established paradigm of having a multi stakeholder approach. So, when you take care of these two factors, being trying to give about a small bit of token which is neutral, relevant, and has that flexibility, inherent flexibility of capturing the imagination of the city. Beyond that, once it's acceptable to the larger population, once you run it through and show it around to various stakeholders, it's acceptable as of today. I think that's where the buck stops. I'm not trying to bring in something that would be like immortal. So that's not what my, what my aspiration of my or of my team would be. So I think when keeping that in mind, beyond the limit, it's not a it's not too big a burden. Otherwise, it would become a never-ending exercise, and there cannot be one single subscript or a symbol that is acceptable to all. So I think beyond a limit, no, and the end to which the this means are being adopted, I think that should satisfy, which I just talked about and maybe all of the speakers talked about. Uh, I think that is it.
Right, sir. Thank you. I hope, Kavinaz, you found your answer there. Next, I would like to go to Prashul's question to Mr. Gupta. So, while designing cities, it seems like a huge responsibility regarding scale, population, and ever-changing urbanism. What is your approach to ensure that the design is resilient for all these verticals?
So thanks, Prashul. Well, I think Mr. Rathi pretty much answered this previously. So it's about having the right approach and the right ambition. You can't go very sharp. It is about the public domain. It is something that has to be timeless. It has to stand the test of the culture and the people. So it's like a sharp rock with people softening in it. It becomes a pebble, but that pebble has that essence is always there. So it's about being able to engage with stakeholders and also use your understanding to always address the essence and not make it very direct, not make it very pointed. And I think that helps it to remain open-ended, and so that responsibility to not only handhold the past but also open it for the future is possible.
Right. Thank you for your answer. I would now take up the next question for by Mridu for Yurun. Yurun, she asks how important it is naming a street or a neighborhood while conceiving a new city. What can we look at when we coin names for these urban spaces?
Oh, that's a very good question, because there are big debates in Europe at this moment about naming streets, because in the past it was a lot of streets were named after painters, which is okay, but also after former political leaders, and that is a bit more scary because in hindsight they were not that. How should you say that? They did some things not really according to contemporary standards. But it would be good to come up with names that are very meaningful for the neighborhood itself, and maybe even involving the neighborhood itself, which is why not? I mean, it can be part of the narrative and the storytelling or the score of what you're doing. Maybe the names of the The streets are comparable to the triangle in the orchestra. You know, very small, but it stands out for a short moment, recognizable, and also not harmful. Thank you, Marido, for the question.
Okay, so I think we have time for one last question. I would like to take question from Shruti Ahuja for Mr. Rasti. So she's asked that with so many organizations at play, what challenges do you face while coordinating with different agencies, stakeholders, bureaucrats, and consultants?
In fact, it's an interesting question, but I would like to say that it's our job, and due to training and experience, now we have that capabilities, caliber, and skills to coordinate with among these agencies. In fact, we have various modes and mediums and forums. By using these modes, medium, and forums, we can navigate and coordinate with these agencies, but main optimum or main goal should be how to create a win-win situation for both agencies without disturbing the outcomes. It's a very important thing, and if as a coordinator officer, as a municipal commissioner, if I am able to create that win-win situation for all stakeholders without disturbing the outcomes or success or the output of the product, it will be acceptable for all the stakeholders, and in fact they will become the part of that particular aspect of project.
Right, sir.
Thank you.
So with the time already exceeding with 10 minutes, I would not like to conclude the session, and thank you really all the panelists here and all the audience. I'm sure we all had a really interesting time interacting with all of you people and learning so many new aspects and perspectives on building a city narrative. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prashasti. Thank you very much, Mr. Ratti, Mr. Pandi, and Saurabh. Ciao, bye.